Hi, everyone. Deborah Hamilton. And today we're going to talk with Carolyn Shadle. She's just written a great book, From Religion to Responsibility. And it really hits home, not just for the animal world, but for everyone in between. She has written so many communication books for veterinary medicine. She was a prior guest of Why Do Pets Matter? And I just love her to pieces. Remember to like and subscribe and share Why Do Pets Matter so others can find us. And now let's hear what Carolyn has to say. Hi, I'm Deborah Hamilton. Welcome to my podcast, Why Do Pets Matter? 10 years ago, with my iPhone and a script, I recorded the first episode of the Ultimate Pet Resolution Summit, which chatted with experts about conflicts over animals. Our conversations were intimate, honest, and illustrated how disagreements over animals occur and how those disagreements can reshape people's lives and relationships. In November 2019, I started Why Do Pets Matter, a new podcast that continued these informative discussions. I'm so excited to have you here with me, continuing my exploration into a more meaningful conversation about why pets matter to all of us. My guests and I will share ideas, stories, and experiences straight from the heart, unscripted and holistic. From the bravest moments to the most brokenhearted, we will explore how to resolve disagreements over animals differently. One thing I know for sure is I want to have more meaningful conversations that will help all of us unlock that deeply felt human-animal bond that drives the emotions of conflict. Hi, everyone, and thanks again for coming to Why Do Pets Matter? Remember to like and share Why Do Pets Matter episodes so that others can find us. Today, I am so grateful to have my dear friend, Carolyn Shadle, back to talk about what we do actually together. We help people communicate in a way that draws empathy and active listening. So, Carolyn, thank you so much for being back on Why Do Pets Matter? It has been way too long.
It's wonderful to see you again. Yes, love it.
And I know we met probably in 2014 because you and your significant other, John, do the same thing that I do. You help people communicate in a way that enables active listening, enables some compassion and empathy. Tell us a little bit more about what you've been up to, because you've been not only traveling, but you're going to be speaking at some upcoming conferences.
Yes, my upcoming conference is in July, the American Medical Veterinary Association. They've asked us to do two seminars, which are sort of emblematic of the various things we do. One is the power of emotion and how to show empathy. And that to me is just the heart of our work. As you know, veterinarians have spent a lot of time learning the healthcare and the medical needs of the veterinarians and their pets. But once they get into practice, they realize it's not just an animal business, it's a people business. So they're now interested in finding out, how do I understand the anxious pet owner that I'm dealing with, and how can I listen? And the second seminar we're doing is I forget what is the title, but something about how the health of the pet influence the health of the pet owner. It's a human animal bond topic that we've probably discussed many times, but to understand the dollars and cents payoff for pet owners is sort of another way of looking at why owning a pet is good for me as well as for the pet. Not just in the pleasure I get from owning the pet, but the payoff in terms of my health. There's very, very good statistics that demonstrate that pet owners spend less on health care than non-pet owners. And of course, we all know the value of walking a dog. You're getting out, you're moving. But the emotional aspect is well documented too, that people who have a dog that's not necessarily a therapy dog, it just could be their dog, are using less meds and have less time for recovery. So it's it's very exciting to get back into both of those topics, which we we enjoy immensely.
I love that because recognizing in veterinary medicine that only the Subaru dogs arrive without people helps veterinarians understand the benefits of having a good relation and some transparency with owners. And sometimes, I'm a lawyer, as everybody knows, we scare people in vet school about what to say, what not to say as a veterinarian to owners. However, as you've pointed out, um, being able to communicate and ask some questions that bring some information forward to help you better handle the needs of the client and their pet, who is an extension of the client, is really important.
Yeah. And I think veterinarians can really save themselves some time by taking time to listen and find out what the real issues are. I think of one site when a client came in and said, "My dog is limping." Well, let's do tests. Let's ask a lot of questions. But instead of that, the vet just listened and, "Well, tell me about it. When did this start?" "Oh, well, come to think of it, we went camping last weekend, and when my husband dropped the back end, the dog fell off. You know, he's been limping ever since then. I never thought about that." So giving a client a chance to think and remember and share can save a lot of testing, a lot of questions, make the client feel that they have some ownership in helping to diagnose the problem. So there's a lot to be said for listening in terms of practical information as well as making the client feel heard.
Absolutely. It's the agency that you give them to feel like they're your partner. That's why I always think of teams as including clients, because without that everyday knowledge of what did you do last weekend, and maybe that's the reason, you could run up a number of tests where you could have found that the dog wrenched himself, and ask whether or not you want to take extraordinary means or do you want to take a week. I know when I twisted my knee probably about 3 weeks ago now. I've been an orthopedic nightmare for about since 2025, actually, or the end of 2024. The doctor said, "Well, let me, give you a shot of cortisone." And I said, "No, let's give me a week or 2. Let me see what's gonna happen." And it actually went away. He couldn't believe it. He said, "There's no swelling, there's no this." And I go, "Yeah, I just simply decided to listen to my body, um,
Mhm.
instruct what I could do." And I know that veterinarians sometimes feel when clients, and I don't know if you probably have had veterinarians come up and say, "Well, clients are so bossy and they ask so many questions and they don't listen to what I tell them," and then they get angry. What do you do, or how do you help veterinarians feel respected and understood for their point of view and the needs that they see they have to make sure the pet is well cared for, while also enabling the client to have agency? Because at the end of the day, the client's going to be the person who has to um, comply with the directives going home.
You know, Trends Magazine had a wonderful picture with a caption, and the caption was, "People don't know how much you know until they know how much you care." So I guess that seems to sum it up. If you can let if the veterinarian and the receptionist can let the pet owner know that they're there for them and they care and they want to listen, it will become reciprocated. If you'll listen to me, I'll listen to you, is sort of the unconscious process. And eventually, of course, the veterinarian is the authority, has all the medical know-how, has experience, has expertise, and that's what people are coming for, and they're paying for that. But they need to be heard first, and then they're going to be ready to listen to all that expertise. It's a hard lesson to learn.
I always say,
Yeah.
stop, role, which means stop talking and listen, drop the need to be right, because you know what? You don't know if you're right unless you hear exactly, I went camping, the dog flew out of the back of the car. You might not have heard that if you think, oh my God, let's not think zebras when we hear hoof prints, right? We want we want to think, let's see what's going on here. I know that you just wrote a new book, so Why Do Pets Matter? I know you write these books so that people can communicate in such a better way. Tell us a little bit about the new book, because you have at least 2 or 3 books. I see them behind you. I'm so glad that you have that set up. I have to figure out how to do that myself. But tell me a little bit about the new book and then remind us about the other books.
Well, the new book is taking me off in another path, although if you read it, you'll see where communication and veterinary service fits in. My first career was in church work. When I grew up at a very conservative environment, I pledged to myself to have a dream. My dream was to be a Christian education director. So I went to college and then I went to Union Theological Seminary, which if anybody knows Union, it's an excellent progressive seminary. And I went on to serve in a large urban church. But I had doubts from the time I began studying religion, and those doubts grew over the years. I left the church work primarily to raise my children, but then I began to realize that there were other things calling me, and that's when I went out back and got a doctorate degree in communication, because I really had become committed to the value of communication. And it was mixed with my Christian values at the time, like accepting people, listening to people, caring about people. So I went on and studied communication, did a lot of training, teaching, went into higher education. And I began to then really go back and try to understand what decisions I had made as a young person, as a young adult, as I went through my various interests. I wrote the book primarily initially for my children, so explain to them why I was no longer prescribing to some of the beliefs that I held as a teenager and a young person, and that I had transferred to them. And as I wrote, I really learned a lot about myself and what decisions I had made and why I had made them. I did a lot of reading about decision making and what influences decisions that we make. Why did I move from church work to communication to veterinary work, and then on into what I call civic engagement? I direct a program called Concerned Seniors Making a Difference, which takes me into all areas of life and concerns. So when I wrote it, I submitted chapter by chapter to some friends and trusted people who I thought might understand the eras that I lived in, or who were good writers themselves or published writers, for their feedback. And I got marvelous feedback. But what I learned most was that they wanted to tell me their story. And this reminded them of a doubt that they had had, or a book they had read, or a question they had had. So eventually I decided to make it more available. And so it was published early this year. I had a book launch just a few weeks ago to make it formal as a publication. And the reviews and the feedback have just really been heartening. I guess I hit a nerve for a lot of people. So thank you for asking. It's been a roll.
So what's the title, and can we find it on Amazon? We'll put the link in the show notes.
Yes, it's From Religion to Reason, My Journey. It's on Amazon. Yeah, I've got a website, www.religiontoreason.com. There are a lot of reviews there. There's some reviews on Amazon, so you can get the quick story in the reviews. Kindle is 99 cents. If anybody reads on Kindle, it's an inexpensive way to go. But if you like to mark up the pages, there's
I am
paperback.
such a page Oh my God. And I'll have to send it out to you to get it signed, Carolyn, once I buy it so that I can read it again. Because I've read your other books, which if anyone's looking on YouTube, but if you're not, it's Building Communication Skills and Communication Case Studies and the Changing Outplacement Process. They are just wonderful books that are so timely right now, don't you think, Carolyn?
Well, yeah, we're going through a lot of changes and a lot of need for understanding each other and listening to each other. The word curiosity has come into my vocabulary. I used to be always thinking about the word as listening, but now I'm thinking it's not only listening, but listening with curiosity. Why does someone feel the way they do? What brought them to their particular belief, whether it's a religious belief or political belief or attitude toward the health of their pet? What makes someone believe the way they do or take the position they do? I'm curious. And if I'm curious, I'm going to keep my mouth shut and listen because I can learn a lot. So, as you say, I wrote the communication case studies, which was a compilation of case studies that were published in American Animal Hospital Association's Trends magazine. They also published the book. There's a little, about half of it is background theory and advice and tips about listening and conflict resolution. The other half is case studies. And then we did the building communication skills, which is a game, non-competitive game, but it's a learning game for groups that or families that want to practice some of the skills that are needed for effective communication.
It's interesting, Carolyn, because the communication book I remember and read cover to cover a few times because it just gave you such wonderful insight into things that had actually happened and that were dissected. Curiosity has been my buzzword from the beginning of mediation because asking curious questions enables people to flesh things out instead of us assuming based on our own experiences and biases and feelings, enabling people to flesh things out before we presume what they mean by this, which I think in veterinary medicine, here's a bias of my own, often because of the lack of time and the need to get a diagnosis done, that the ability to stop and be curious and ask additional questions is not seen as something practical that they can do because they have to move on. And yet, as you beautifully pointed out, if you ask a few curious questions, you might find out that they went camping and the dog fell out of the truck, and that might be why. And no one might even remember. I have to say that, the English cocker that lives with us now has eaten many things that she shouldn't have. And I have to write it down and remember because I'm over 21. I can't remember anything any longer. And when I go to the vet, I really want to give them a full recourse, but I have to take my time and I have to be asked questions that really spur me.
Yeah. And asking the question or inviting a story from the pet owner can be very informative, but even more than that, it sends to the pet owner the message that you are the one that spends 24 hours each day with this pet. You're the one that's in charge, and you're the one who has deep feelings about this pet. I, as a vet professional, care deeply about animals, but I can't feel about your pet the way you do, and I want to recognize that. And so many pet owners are coming, they may be fostering a child or a dog. They may have a therapy dog, or they may have a stray dog that they've taken in. There are any number of reasons why people come to the vet. It isn't just those who have owned their pet for 5 or 10 years, and they need some understanding of their special status as pet owners. They have special questions, they have special feelings. They may be still developing feelings toward their pet because it's new. So listening, being curious, that's so easy to say, but difficult to understand. One of our seminars that I think has been most well received gets into what is listening not. It's not telling my story. And it's very tempting to say, oh, yes, I had a dog that had the same problem. And when it's like, have you ever broken your arm and everybody wants to tell you about their broken bones?
They're going to tell you all about being pregnant.
Yeah, or whatever it is, So listening is not telling your story. Number two, listening is not fixing it. And that's the temptation that veterinarians have. I can fix it. I'm the expert. I know. And that's very true. The veterinarian very well may be able to fix it, but that's not the first thing people want to hear. And in fact, many times people can fix it themselves if they feel empowered and give it have space to think it through and say, oh, I guess I really shouldn't have fed him, da 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 da, or I shouldn't have expected him to jump over, da 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 da. So people can think through things themselves if they're empowered. And obviously, if we make our own decisions, we're more likely to follow them than if there's somebody else's
Science
decisions.
is pretty good when you make your own decisions, and that raises something in my mind. Often now, there was a thread on LinkedIn between a number of different service providers to the veterinary industry about thinking twice about going to the vet because of the cost. And if we don't create that bond, that special bond that is between the veterinarian and the owner, that is respectful, has agency for both, plus all of the vet techs, that everyone feels as if they're heard, respected, and understood. And not, as you said, wasn't that the premise of Men Are From Mars and Women Are From Venus, that men always fix everything and women listen deeply. That's, I think, the concept that we want to bring forward to all of everyone who has an animal, because sometimes clients don't necessarily listen deeply, don't ask curious questions, and walk out really angry and could have diffused it. I know I give seminars to owners as well. You know that as well, Carolyn. So I always say, well, why not ask that curious question? Why not say, well, why do you think it's that? What did I say that has you, and not do it in an adversarial way or a condescending way, but rather in a curious way, so that the veterinarian can expand on what they're thinking, which would then give the owner the opportunity to say, well, that would be true except for, or, oh my God, that's exactly what happened.
Yeah. Now I remember.
The ability to take a step back has really diminished since, I think, the pandemic. I find that, a number of veterinarians may still have people waiting outside. Have you
Mm.
heard? I've heard of it, and often in a lot of places.
Yes, and people have become very accustomed to video conferencing, which saves a lot of time. If there isn't an occasional face-to-face opportunity, that can cause some difficulties in communication. I love video, and here we are on video, and it's great. And I think the pandemic has introduced us to Zoom and made us more comfortable with that. But there's nothing like occasionally getting together. You're going to come to California, and we're going to renew the original face-to-face contacts that we've had over the years. Understanding where people are coming from, I think for veterinarians is very difficult because of the press of time and wanting to get to the point quickly. And I've got 15 minutes and I've got to get you in and out of here in 15 minutes. But I'm convinced that listening to people saves time in the long run. And I encourage people that I work with to just try it and see if I'm not right, because you'll hear things that you didn't expect to hear.
Yeah, my favorite question, when I'm in mediations or when I'm helping veterinarians deal with negativity coming from a client, or a client dealing with what they perceive as negativity from the veterinarian, I always say, ask that golden question: tell me more.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Yes. Say
Because,
more.
yeah,
Yeah.
tell me
Yeah.
more, because I just want to know what it is that is really creating this division between us because we've been together, whatever. I know when I moved to North Carolina, the ability to find a veterinarian was really hard. Who would have thought? I mean, here I am moving to a lovely area with lots of dogs, and I had had my vet for 25 years and didn't realize that leaving her would leave me in a position where not one vet, and of course this was 2021, so it was after the pandemic and things were still a little standoffish. Um, no one wanted to speak to me if I didn't have a dog on the end of a leash, even though I said I'm happy to pay for a meeting, so I can tell you who I am. We can meet, we can talk about our philosophies. I tell you, Carolyn, zero.
That's really interesting. Well, veterinarians were trained to serve dogs, not people.
Right.
That's where we are. It's a people business, but it's very difficult for especially young veterinarians to accept that because they've wanted this profession for so long. They started out loving their dogs and cats, and that's where they want to be. So if you don't bring your dog in, then why do we want to see you?
Time, which I completely understood, and I waited till the dog got there. As someone who's been in the veterinary field and watched it change over the years, probably over 20 now, Carolyn, what are the two things that you feel clients can do to make the relationship better, as well as veterinarians to do? I know we've spoken to a few of them, and you can repeat that as something to contemplate. If you are a veterinarian or you're a client, you're going in to see your veterinarian, what are some of the things that and you'll probably be giving some of these tips at the seminars for anxiousness or the anxious owner, or the, human animal bond connection and how to find out about that at AVMA in July. So what are some of the things that you might leave behind now to have listeners understand this is what I need to do when I go visit my vet with my dog, or this is what I need to do when I'm in a room and maybe there's a little bit of a disconnect?
Well, I think you've hit on the right word, and that's anxiety. I think there's a lot of anxiety for pet owners when they're facing having to take the dog to the vet. If the dog is ill or hurting, that's of course a very anxious feeling. If it's just for a checkup, there's still anxiety. How long am I going to have to wait? Or how long do I have to wait to get an appointment? And once I get into the waiting room, is there going to be an emergency? Am I going to have to wait? Can I plan my day? And then what's it going to cost? I'm anxious about that. So there's all these anxieties. Likewise, on the other side of the table, the the receptionist and or the tech, whoever is going to be addressing the pet owner, has anxiety about, will they listen to me? Will I understand what it is? Or if they've had some training in communication, it's can I hold back and listen instead of rush in with my usual diagnosis? So I think understanding anxiety, and that I think has become a a word that has been much more understood since the pandemic because there's a lot of anxiety. The demand for mental health has gone way up. And why? The assumption is the isolation during pandemic has impacted a lot of people. The changes going on in our larger world right now, our government, our world, I think there's anxiety in the background that affects the way we behave in everyday interactions. So number one would be understanding anxiety and being prepared for it. And number two, of course, is trying to remember those skills. Remember, when I get there, I need to listen, whether it's the pet owner or the staff. Let's listen to each other. Let's give each other space. Let's understand and be curious. Wait for people to tell their story, invite them. And I think you use the phrase, say more, tell me about it. That's that's the best thing people can say as the first thing out of their mouth. Say more.
Yeah, because why do pets matter? I think that over the last 5 to 7 years, pets have really become so much more important, maybe even longer, to people. But definitely during the pandemic, many people got pets. Some of them got pets for the first time, and this created a huge amount of need for vet care, and maybe with people who had never had pets before, so their interaction with vets is new. And then the people who have pets and had interactions with vets for years went, wait, this is new. So I think you're right. If we can just understand the anxiety and pre-pave a more peaceful way to move forward, and then when you're there, whether you're the vet or the client, use a little curiosity. It doesn't kill the cat. It actually prepares you for better conversations. So, Carolyn, how can people get in touch with you? I know you're on LinkedIn, which of course is wonderful, and I know you're on Instagram.
LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook. I have several websites. One is www.veterinariancommunication.com. Another is one around my book, www.religiontoreason.com. So those are probably the best ways for people
Oh,
to read.
wonderful.
Yeah.
Wonderful. It's so important because veterinary medicine, I'm on the board now of NAMVI, and veterinary medicine has created the anxiety and the angst that sometimes fuels suicide in the ranks of veterinarians. And so we, as communication facilitators, hope to assist, and I think this is right, and tell me how you feel, hope to assist both the clients and the members of the vet staff and the vets to have a better way to prepare themselves, to protect themselves and keep their agency and dignity, while also supporting and protecting their clients' agency and dignity.
Well, I'm encouraged by the fact that the veterinary profession is recognizing the threat of suicide and talking about it and making it public. There's certainly been an increase in the teaching of communication skills and suicide prevention in the veterinary schools. And I think there's an increase among veterinarians at conferences being willing to give some of their time to learn interaction skills and self-preservation skills. When they go to a conference, there's, over 100 choices, and there's so many things in the medical field that they need to learn to keep up that it's a tension, but I'm sensing that they're recognizing that some percentage of their time needs to be around self-preservation, self-enrichment, interaction with other people, and how to build not only a healthy environment, but a healthy self. And that's encouraging.
It's so encouraging to me as well, and that they are providing and maybe requesting, if not requiring, continuing education hours in self-care is so important.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
And
we're seeing that.
yoga and breathing.
Yeah, we're seeing that.
Well, I'm so glad you came. I'm so glad you've been here. I can't wait to see you. I will be at AVMA as well, not as a speaker, but as I don't think so anyway. As AVM LA, because we have a membership meeting and things for American Veterinary Medical Law Association. We meet the same time. So I'll be there, I think, Saturday and Sunday. So hopefully we'll be able to catch up.
Well, we'll try to connect. That's wonderful. Well, thank you for having me. It's wonderful to be talking with you again and being part of your podcast series. You're doing a wonderful job and a great service.
Oh,
So,
what well, pets really matter to me, and why they matter to everyone is often different. And as you said, if you stop and listen and you ask curious questions, you'll find out why people do what they do and how they do it. So until next time, Carolyn, I give you a hug and a kiss. And everyone else, thank you for being here. Remember to like and share, and kiss your pets for me. Take care.
thanks. Bye-bye.